For as long as I've been in the wine trade, winemakers have consistently said it takes a lot of beer to produce amazing wine. And because I don't want them to start slacking anytime soon, I'm going to be sitting down with some of my favorite winemakers and getting them all to take on DasBootiful Cape Winelands Challenge. The challenge itself is all about chugging down a locally produced craft beer while still appreciating the world-class wine. Now let's find out who the quickest winemaker is. Welcome to another episode of DasBootiful Cape Winelands, where today I'm sitting with Hagen Viljoen, the cellar master over here at Zevenwacht Wine Estate. Hagen, thanks a lot for taking some time out.
Always good,
and sitting with me this afternoon. Okay, Hagen, let's jump straight into it. First of all, Zevenwacht, what does the name mean, and what makes Zevenwacht so unique compared to the other farms around the area?
So Zevenwacht is actually a combination of the farm's first two names, Verwacht and Zevenfontein. So when the two properties were initially granted, it was under separate ownership, and then the farm eventually amalgamated and they put the two names together, and it loosely translates seven expectations.
Okay, for sure.
Yeah.
So is that like a play on, say, all of us are like consumers in our own right, and we might have our own list of expectations. So whether you're being exposed to the brand through wine or meeting one of the staff members, we hope that obviously, the first time that you get to, taste or meet, your list of expectations will be met.
Of course, yeah. I think we've got quite a diverse offering on the farm. So yeah, I think it's just a bit of a play on, I'm trying to think what it would be a play on. There's something to it. I can't remember what it is exactly now, but seven expectations. And something for me that definitely stands out and that actually brought me back to the farm was just our beautiful terroir, the aspects we have here just on the slopes of the Polka Dry, and sure. I just think there's massive potential, and that's eventually, I think, what motivates any winemaker. So
absolutely, it's a beautiful, beautiful property.
Yeah.
It must be a pleasure to obviously work here.
Of course, of course.
So Hagen, let's talk a bit about you. Why winemaking? When you could have become a doctor or a nice rich accountant, why did you choose the route of winemaking?
Well, ironically, I actually started off studying engineering, electronic engineering, and after a year of studies, I definitely just realized that that I want to be motivated by something that I'm passionate about, and I don't want to get up every day and feel like there's a job to be done and it's just kind of grinding along. So at that stage, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do, but I grew up, my dad used to work for Stellenbosch Farmers Winery, and I grew up in a household where we would just food and wine was part of our routine, part of the fabric of our growing up. So after having a few discussions with friends, and especially a good friend of my brother's at that time who was a winemaker, and ironically was the previous cellar master at Zevenwacht, Jacques Viljoen, I wouldn't say I was persuaded, but I was easily
encouraged
to just kind of explore the wine industry. So maybe it was a bit of a naive decision. I always thought it's a nice combination of science and the outdoors, so a lot of kind of tick boxes for me in terms of the appeal. But the passion only really started afterwards, so I think it was a bit of a luck of the draw that it worked out quite well. Yeah. Definitely didn't know what I was getting myself into, so here I am,
for sure. 20
years later, still loving what I do. So
it must be quite a special experience, like trying the very first wine that you produced. How was that?
Yeah,
can you remember?
I mean, so
sketchy.
It takes a while. No, no, I was actually pretty chuffed. I think obviously one works as assistant winemaker for quite a while, so you get to make a lot of wine, but it's only really yours when you're the winemaker. Yeah. So the first wine I made that I was really proud of was the Amelie white blend at Storms Delta.
Okay.
Back in 2013 was the first vintage that I made. So yeah, definitely. It's like your children.
Sure.
You do remember, and you're proud of them no matter what.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure. That's what I'm feeling that.
There we go.
So in your opinion, Hagen, what's the most important stage in the winemaking process?
That's a good question. I think there's a lot of aspects to take into consideration, but I think ultimately the most important stage is really having the right vision in mind, because your vision dictates all your decision making. Yeah. If you don't have the right vision before you start, then you're not going to get the end product you want. So I think that's got to be in place. And then for me, again, a critical kind of a phase is just your picking. When you pick, I think that determines ultimately the style of wine you're going to be making, the balance, all the aspects that you're looking for is really kind of captured in that one decision when you're picking. So I think that's for me probably key.
Yeah, for sure.
Wine.
So I mean, being a winemaker, you've been exposed to many different wines and some incredible wines. I'm sure some pretty average wines. But along your whole, wine appreciation journey, what's the one wine that has always remained your favorite wine to date?
Wow,
a difficult one.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I think the first wine that really kind of captured my attention was Cheval Blanc. I think it was the 2004 vintage while I was doing an internship in the Bordeaux region in France, and it's not necessarily the wine that to date is my favorite, but it's definitely just a wine that was a bit of a key kind of a trigger for me in terms of wine, and just really there was just so much continuity and balance on the palate. It was just like this moment I was like, wow, this is incredible. But since then I'm more of a Rhone aficionado, so I love Northern Rhone, I love the Côte Rôties. For me, something like Stefan Ogier or even Chave are just wines that are always my go-to kind of favorites.
Sure.
If I ever got the bucks to taste them. So yeah.
Okay, so I'm pretty certain that you must have a nice little hidden stash of very secret and very expensive wine somewhere at your house. I don't know if you've got a cellar, but in your own personal capacity, what is the most prestigious wine that you might have, or the most special wine that you've got at home?
Well, I've actually, not my proudest moment, but my wine cellar tends to oscillate, fluctuate a bit from being fairly average to being non-existent, as I tend to believe one needs to enjoy the moment. You never know what's going to happen tomorrow. No, in reality is it's a tricky one. We cellar up a few wines. My wife and I, my wife's also studied winemaking together. She loves wine, so the two of us climb into a bottle of wine regularly. So we deplete our cellar often, and then we'll swap out and stock it up. But at the moment, I've actually got a sneaky little wine that is a Gigol. I think I'm trying to think what it is. I think it's the Ampui from Gigol, which is probably the most expensive wine that I have in my cellar.
Nice, that's excellent.
Yeah.
When are we going to tuck into that?
Yeah, good question.
So Hagen, you also did harvest over in Marlborough. So the wine that we have here today is the Sauvignon Blanc. So what you learned in Marlborough, is that something that you've brought across over here? Because the one thing that we have to point out is that at Zevenwacht you're producing 3 different Sauvignon Blancs, and all 3 were actually in the top 20. I mean, for a Stellenbosch producer, it's not really necessarily something that you see every day. You've got these cooler winemaking regions just outside, I mean, such as Elgin and Walker Bay. I mean, they're specifically well known for these cultivars. So, I mean, it must be quite crazy and quite surreal for them to have a look at a Stellenbosch-based producer that's producing the best Sauvignon in the country right now.
Yeah, I think it's I definitely learned a lot while I was there, just in terms of wine styles and handling of fruit. But our sites are very different. The New Zealand Sauvignons, they've got massive amount of thials, 3mm8 or 3MH, 4MMP. They don't need to try and enhance that, where on our side everything we do is to try and enhance and just capture or express as many thials as we can in our wine. So I think definitely stylistically there's significant differences. What I did enjoy there, and there's certain wines in New Zealand market that for me were also kind of key wines, something like the Tukoko, and obviously Dog Point. Those kind of barrel fermented Sauvignons have always been an inspiration for me. And ultimately this is what we were trying to go or achieve with the Z Collection Sauvignon, where we've moved to a Blanc Fumé style, almost between a Bordeaux white and something like a wooded New Zealand Sauvignon.
For sure.
So yeah,
okay.
That answered the question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because I just think I think it must be something that you need to be proud of, because Stellenbosch is specifically well known for, I would say, Cabernet Sauvignon. So I think the fact that Sav is really showing off quite well this side is something that you should be proud of. So I mean, enough mumbo jumbo. How about we get down to tasting this wine?
Let's do it.
Okay, so Hagen, now that this wine is open, can you maybe just talk us through a little bit of the production process that's gone into this wine?
Of course. So obviously it's the Z collection, Sauvignon Blanc 21, and the Z collection is our top range for Zevenwacht, where we have specific site selections. So this is a blend of our top vineyard block on the farm, sitting at around 350 meters above sea level. There's actually a second younger block of Sauvignon there as well, which actually amplifies the aromatics quite a bit. And then there's a splash or a small bit of Semillon in there, around 13%.
Sorry to interrupt you. So Semillon, I mean, some people might know, but not many people do. So the addition of Semillon, what does that contribute to Sauvignon Blanc?
So for me, I think there are two things. The main reason is Semillon has quite a broad textural palate. So it always adds a little bit of a mid-palate weight for me, and specifically when the wine's aging as well, that mid-palate kind of oiliness can also ages beautifully. But then also we get quite a interesting, almost a little bit of a lime, green citrus flavor with some white pear that comes from our Semillon. So I think it just adds a little bit of complexity in terms of the fruit profile, and then definitely adds that little bit of mid-palate weight on the wine. So we basically do a bit of skin contact around 8 to 10 hours, depending on the component. And
you can feel that on the palate. Eh?
Yeah, so that skin contact just basically helps extract some of the precursor compounds in the skin of Sauvignon. And then we'll just do it we do a bit of extended lease contact, or basically lease contact after pressing. For about 3 days, and that again just helps to extract some of those flavor thiol precursors, and then we'll rack it off and take it down to barrel for fermentation.
So sorry again. So these are little things that I want to point out as we go along. So Sauvignon Blanc is considered one of the more aromatic varietals that you'll find there. A general rule of thumb is that winemaking practices such as barrel fermentation or barrel maturation, especially for aromatic varietals, is not something that winemakers do, because you might master aromatic, but although it's been in barrel for 9 months, like you're saying, this wine is jumping out at you. This wine has got so much expression. So how do you do that? Is that just the power of the fruit, or is this just the excellent winemaking?
No, definitely. I think it's obviously a combination of both. No, there is this. Sorry, I've got a bit of the specific.
A mucky in the throat.
Yeah, all the acidity. The specific block selection has got massive concentration, so that plays a factor. But after the fermentation starts, we do everything from there on. We do to protect the wine. So once it's done with fermenting in the barrel, I'll top it up quite quickly. We try and protect the wine with a little bit of lees stirring in the barrel, just to protect the aromatics. The lees obviously helps with the redox potential, so that the wine doesn't go into an oxidative state.
Okay.
And then I'll also sulfur some of the components quite early in barrel, just to capture that the fresher aromatics of Sauvignon. But the whole idea about this wine is to break a little bit of that kind of tropical profile, and just to bring in a little bit of spice and complexity there from the barrel. So it's just finding that balance, where obviously barrels can go quite oxidative, but depending on your selection of oak and your handling and working with lees and sulfur, you can manage that process quite effectively.
Absolutely. This feels to me that it's a wine that's actually going to age. So can you maybe just break this myth of white wines can't age?
I mean, I love older whites, and Sauvignon Blanc is seen as a noble varietal, so it does gain complexity with aging. And for me, I think the oldest white I tried was I had an old vergelegen Sauvignon Blanc that we tried when we were, and that was about 10 or 15 years old, and that was singing.
Yeah.
And I love that the just the development on it, that as it kind of gets more of that asparagus-y note,
sure.
and just
Sexy.
and just the weight and concentration you get from the wine. So no, I think whites age beautifully. South African whites, I mean, Chenin ages fantastically, and I think Sauvignon,
It's
is one
got
of
the
those.
fruit and it's got the acidity. So
Exactly.
it's something that's going to be able to.
It's got all those building
develop.
blocks. Add a bit of Semillon in there as a
Yeah.
border white, and you've got a winner.
So Hagen, let's cut a long story short over here. For as long as I've been in the wine trade, winemakers have consistently said one thing to me. Gareth, it takes a lot of beer to produce excellent wine. And Hagen, because we want you to carry on producing wines like this, I think it's time that you pay the piper and take on DasBootiful Cape Winelands Challenge. This season's beer sponsorship comes from the Kennel Brewery. Today's beer is the Lager d'Or, a lager. Unfiltered lager with a medium body and a crisp taste. A malt-forward beer with a light honey and nut backbone. So Hagen, it's time for you to pay the piper and take on DasBootiful Cape Winelands Challenge. You know the rules. The minute this beer touches your lips, it's go time. Peter over here from Sunny's Rest sets the highest time or the quickest time at 10:54, and hopefully you're going to be at least able to beat Batters at 23:03. You ready to take it on?
I'm a little bit rusty, but let's see what I can do.
Let's see what you've got in that tank. Eh? Okay, so I'm going to count you down. You can hold the beer. I'm going to count you down. The minute it touches your lips, I'm timing.
Get my strategy right here.
3, 2, 1. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. 8 seconds. 8 seconds 03. Hagen, you've officially set the fastest time of DasBootiful Cape Winelands.
Boom.
Damn, Hagen, you're an absolute machine. Let's put you down over here. So Hagen.
It's a hot day. I've been thirsty.
8:03. So impressive.
Boom. Nice.
So I'll put you into first place in a bit, but Hagen, I just want to say massive thanks for joining today's show. It looks like you are the champion for the time being. I wonder if there's going to be winemakers out there that can set a better time. We're going to have to wait and see. But massive thanks. Continue the great work and spoiling us with world-class wines.
Thanks, Gareth. Awesome.
So guys, if you'd like to get your hands on some of this amazing Zevenwacht wine, make sure to just follow the links below. If you guys have enjoyed this video, make sure to like, comment, and also share it. And if you'd like to make a contribution towards my crowdfunding campaign, you can scan the QR code below. So folks, before I love and leave you, I want to remind you to be kind and drink good wine.
And beer.
And beer. That's it, Hagen. Thanks a lot. Quick and easy. Yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah.
That's seriously impressive.